So we've covered everything we need for the chapter. The only thing we have to do is get ready for the application problems. There are two types of problems that can be worked out in quadratic equations. Actually, there's more than two, but the main thing we know how to do is find maximum values and solutions. We are also skilled enough to evaluate a problem, which I don't think we'll see a question like that on the test, but I'm going to just show you the two things that you're going to be looking at in terms of the test next week. Also in terms of some of your work today, so you can kind of start getting used to it. It says the area of a room is 21 square feet. If the width is x feet and the length is x plus 3 feet, what are the actual measures of the length and width? You remember before that area was equal to length times width, and so whenever they give you the area of the room and then they give you the length and the width, pretty much you're going to be using that as your baseline. And so what you do now is you substitute what you know. You know that the area is 21, so you put 21 in for area. It says that the length is x plus 3, and it says that the width is x. And so this looks a little different than what we're used to, but that's just because we haven't cleaned it up yet. One of the things we have to do, for example, is distribute this x to end up with 21 equals x squared plus 3x. Now, if you remember, what I told you a little while ago is that you cannot solve anything with an x squared and an x unless everything's on one side. So what we will do here is we will move the 21 over here to the other side, because in order to do all of our stuff, remember that it always equals 0. So we move our 21, we get x squared plus 3x minus 21 over there. Now from here, again, we're looking for the solution. The value is going to make it 0, and keep in mind that the easiest way to do that is to try to factor. So let's see if we can factor this first before we have to do the quadratic formula. So this means we're looking for numbers that multiply to make negative 21 and add to make 3. So looking at 21, you've got 1 and 21, and pretty much just 3 and 7. Hold on, that should be x plus 4, and this should be x, or it should be 4, and that should be a 4, and that should also be a 4. Sorry about that. Anyway, adding to make 4. The only numbers that make 4 would be 7 and 3. The only thing is we have to fix it because 3 plus 7 is not 4. Since 4 is positive and it's smaller, we know we want this to be positive. We know we need that to be negative. And so you end up with x over 3, negative 3, and x over 7 as your answers there. And so 0 ends up equaling x minus 3 and x plus 7. You solve both of these as usual. X minus 3 equals 0, because remember it's just on the other side. It's just as if it was over there. And x plus 7 equals 0, which means in the end you have the answers of x equals 3 and x equals negative 7. Now in this word problem, keep in mind that x represents your width, and it's not possible to have a negative width. So what you do is you pretty much say this doesn't make sense, so you cross it out, which means your actual width is 3, which means it's your length. It says your length is x plus 3. X plus 4. And so if that is 3, then it's going to be 3 plus 4, or 7. And if you look at it, that is 4 bigger, and 7 times 3 does make your 21. And so again, that's one problem you're going to see today as your kind of wrap-up practice for what's going on. Just remember again that in order to solve this, your area is over here, your problem's over here, you have to move it over by shifting the sign, and once you do that, you should be able to solve it easy enough as it is to get it done. The second type of problem is going to talk about the path of an object, and what they're going to ask you for is the maximum height. Well, remember that we found maximum way back a few weeks ago when we started this stuff by using the key x, and so what we have to do now is go back to that, to where we do our x equals negative b over 2a. First off, remember we have to identify a, b, and c. I almost forgot myself. So a is negative 0.3, b is 12, c is 5. And so remember, negative b means take the opposite of b, which is negative 12, over double that, double negative 0.3, so negative 0.3 times 2 makes negative 0.6, which when you divide negative 12 by negative 0.6, you end up with 20. Keep in mind that is not your maximum, that is the distance you go this way to get to the maximum. That if we want the maximum, what we have to do is take that and plug it back in. So what we end up doing is plugging it back into the formula. So negative 0.3 times 20 squared plus 12 times 20 and then plus 5 gives us a maximum height of 125. Again, keep in mind what we would have there is a 5-point chart if we were doing it the way we normally did it, with 20 in the middle, 19, 18, 21, 22, 125 here. And again, I guarantee that if we did 19 feet, that it would be lower than 125, which it is. It's 124.7. That if we did 21 feet, that we'd get the same answer. Because remember when we did our table, see how those two match? Where those match, and this would represent the highest point. So just remember when you see this question that your maximum value is the value that goes with the key x. It's not the key x. Alright? So again, you'll get some practice on that today also. And then the last thing we're going to do is graph a function. Keep in mind that in order to graph the function, we've got to make our 5-point chart. Our 5-point chart has to be based off of the key x. A in this case is 1, B in this case is 2, C is negative 3. If x is negative b over 2a, we want negative 2 on top and 2 times 1, or 2 on the bottom, which means that our key x is negative 1. So you go negative 2, negative 3, 0, and 1, and again we simply take those values and plug them in to see what we end up with. So negative 3 squared plus 2 times negative 3 minus 3 is 0. Remember that if I want to redo that, I just hit second enter and change my numbers by just typing over whatever is there. That's negative 3. Doing that again, negative 1 and negative 1 gives me negative 4. This should give me negative 3, but remember I don't want to, remember you gotta delete that negative. But remember that I don't want to make that assumption until I see one number match, which once I get that negative 3, I know for a fact that the top matches the bottom. And from there we just graph it. Negative 3, 0 means 1, 2, 3 back, don't move. Negative 2, negative 3 means here. Negative 1, down 4, here. 0, negative 3 here, and then 1, 0 here. You see how it's got the U, and again you draw the best curved U that you can possibly draw, and that'll do it. So that was just kind of like a review problem, but again the problems you're going to see today are going to be more based on word problems and solving them and finding the max and all that good stuff. So like I said, try those out after you're done. You still got some review stuff on there, but just use today to kind of review and bring some of the stuff back to memory. Please don't be afraid to ask questions so you can actually try to get better and start getting better for next week's test. Good luck.